Today, I'm joined by Shimrit Nativ, dialing in from Germany. Shimrit is a transformational leader, speaker, and founder of Master Your Path. She specializes in mindset, transformation, and holistic well-being, and we are going to be talking about all of those things today. Welcome, Shimrit. It's really great to have you here. I appreciate your time, and I'm really looking forward to our conversation.
Thank you so much. I'm so looking forward to it as well. Thank you so much for having me.
You're welcome. Is there anything that you'd like to add? That was a very, very brief intro that I just gave. So there's probably many things you could add, but is there anything that kind of jumps out at you that you'd like to add at the moment?
Well, I think our conversation as it unfolds will reveal more facets of myself and my work. So I think we can jump right into that. And
Beautiful.
my intention is to give as much value as possible to your audience. And yeah, I'm ready to
Great.
go.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. Okay, so let's go right back to the beginning. So you're a coach. You are a transformational coach, but you have your own story, right? And
Yes.
that led you here. So can we
Yeah,
start with that and then kind of delve into what all the nuts and bolts? Oops, I just dropped my
sure.
pen. I'm back.
Yes.
Okay.
So, so you're asking me about my story.
Yeah.
Well, it's quite of a long story. I've been on
Okay.
this earth for 44 years. But yeah, what led me to where I'm at today professionally, well, I most of my life I was a musician, so
Okay.
this is not necessarily obvious that I've gotten to this point where I'm leading a business and a community, and I'm working with people as a coach. But to some levels, there are some things that may be similar. So as a musician, I was also a teacher, and I music is a very healing thing and a very transformational thing in and of itself, and it is a language and an art, and all of these things can be said to what I do today as well. But definitely there were some shifts and realizations that in pivotal moments that led me to leave that behind, that musical career that I was very much invested in for many years, and choose this and start this chapter in my story. Um, and so things kind of, unfolded over the years that prepared me to the work that I do today. Um, Whether it is my own healing journey that started many years before making this transition from music to coaching. Excuse me. Um, so that is back in my 20s when I discovered I had pre-cancerous lesions in my cervix, and that led me to a very deep healing process with myself, with my own coaches and mentors that I've had at the time, and healing modalities, and all kinds of tools and practices that today I use, continue using, and teaching. um, I actually opened up to that, and use those tools and practices to heal. um, and that created a very big, deep transformation, not only healing my body, but also changing all kinds of patterns within myself that used to manifest in relationships, and really call in and attract who today is my husband for many years. So this was one of the most poignant times in my life, possibly, probably, and definitely one that left me with a lot of experience and wisdom, and planted some seeds in me to allow me today to work with people and help them in similar journeys, whether it is healing on a physical body level, or relationship, or otherwise, because it's really the same tools and the same processes and the same laws that govern any creative process, whether you want to create a physical healing, a new relationship, or a business success or financial freedom, it's all the same. It's the creative process, basically. So that's a little piece of my story. I mean, again, I'm on this earth for 44 years, so I can talk for the whole hour. But maybe I'll pause and see if you want to direct this somewhere.
I find that, I was actually going to ask you like the connection. So when we talked about mindset transformation and holistic well-being, and I was like, oh, that's interesting. And that was one of the things that I kind of circled, and I was like, what do you mean by holistic well-being? But that's made complete sense now, and you've already answered that question. Um, I'm I'm really interested to hear a little bit more about that, if you don't mind. When you were when you had the cervical lesions,
Yeah.
and what your process was then in your healing journey. I actually had a very similar experience in my 20s when I had to have a cone biopsy on my cervix. So I had
Mm-hmm.
like pre-cancerous um,
Mm-hmm.
tests
Yeah.
consistently.
Yeah.
And I feel like I had that kind of, very kind of mainstream treatment for it.
Yeah.
Um, and I was aware of more sort of metaphysical healing at the time, but I didn't put those two together.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I'm really curious to hear like how that came about in your life when you had that
Yeah.
experience.
Um, yes. So when that happened, when I discovered it was very intuitive. So it was really intuition that led me to actually go to take the test. And then I found out that it was already a very advanced kind of stage of that. There are several stages to this, as you know.
Mm,
Um, and so it started to begin with from a very intuitive place. And I was already in a period where I was coming out of a relationship and into the next very quickly, being very aware of a pattern that's been going on for also generations, yes, but that's not the word I was looking for relationships before that, right? So I invested a few years here and a few years here and a few years here, and I could see already a pattern in the choices I've made in partners, and the experience that I've had, like that it kind of kept repeating, yet not being able to stop it, right? And I really was just witnessing myself going through another cycle and knowing what I should and should not be um, doing or choosing or compromising, but yeah, doing it anyway. So it was kind of stronger than me. And so during that time, my awareness increased, still not to the point where I managed to lead myself differently, but ever more aware of it and trying, right, and doing the work, but not really started managing to break through that cycle. And then I had the intuition to go and check and discovered the that was the condition. And so when the doctor told me, okay, we should hurry and do the procedure, I was like, I know at that point, I already accepted fully the truth that anything manifested in our life and also in our body is actually, there is a cause that is emotional, that is energetical to it. And so I realized that I could see the connection between the pattern in relationships that I was, very focused on raking through and kind of observing, and this. And it was very clear to me that it was like another knock on the door. So I always call it, it's like, every time we live these cycles, it's like every time they come up in our life, like another relationship, or another, like you said that you've had this several times, right? So
mm,
every time that comes up, or every time there's any pattern, every time it comes, another cycle, it's like a knock on the door, a knock on the gate. And when we finally open it, we get to learn some lesson that's connected to something that, happened to us, or that, and when we learn that lesson, we can really open that door, and I'm using these words, or gate, I'm using these words deliberately, intentionally, because so my native language is Hebrew.
Okay.
And in Hebrew, different words come from the same 3-letter root. So there are different roots of 2 or 3 letters that are roots of different words, that sometimes those different words are not connected in their meaning, seemingly, right? Like unrelated words. And that reveals the relation and the connection and the underlying meaning, and truth. And so the word lesson and the word gate come from the same 3-letter root. And so when you learn the lesson, you open that gate, and then the word richness or expansion or abundance is the inversion of that root. So in my kind of journey and study and self, inquiry and this relates to your first question about what led me. So I was always on this journey of searching and finding out, revealing truths about myself and about life. I love weaving the language into it. And sometimes I think a lot in English. I always have. I don't know why even. And I read, of course, a lot in English. But then sometimes when I read something like, ooh, I wonder let's think about this word in Hebrew and see how it can relate, what it can reveal to me. So with these 3 words, it's one of my favorites, because it's really like that, right? When we learn the lesson, you can open some gate to some other level of awareness, of manifestation, of expansion, right? It's like something that was holding you back, and now there's more richness to whatever it is that is related in your life to that. And so that's really what it was. It was very clear to me when I found out the physical condition that this was a much louder knock. The pattern I was observing in relationships, and I could see like, this is a louder knock and I have to answer it. And if I just do the procedure, the mainstream, I think is the word that you use, then I'm not going to learn the lesson, because I'm going to be focused on that. And I don't know, it's just like the body has the wisdom, and it's through the healing process that you unlock the wisdom, when you're able to release the pain and just receive the learning. And so I had to do that. I changed doctors, because that doctor was very mainstream. It's like, what are you talking about? Like, we're going to do that next week.
And
I'm like, okay, I'm going to find a doctor that is a little bit more patient and understanding. And I did. And she said, okay, 3 months. And during these 3 months, I went very, very deep. And I found out a lot of things about myself, and brought a lot of healing to those places. And then 3 months after, I went to do the check, and like, it's retrieving. So that was really cool. And also during those 3 months, I called in who today is my husband, and he's a completely off the pattern. He was like completely different, not at all the same type, to the point where I was like, I don't know, he's not my type. Right. But with all this understanding and awareness, I knew that this was actually the opportunity. And yeah, it turned out pretty well.
Wow. And so did you eventually, obviously, I would assume, eventually you completely healed that?
Yeah, I did do eventually some smaller procedure, because it didn't heal completely. But when I stepped into that, I was already a different person.
Yeah.
Right. So my husband, he was not my husband yet, but he was by my side. And I went into that procedure completely aware, and really, it was really more of the sealing of the inner, emotional healing process that I underwent.
Yeah.
And I was in full awareness. It was like really just another layer to that process. And yeah, it was actually a beautiful way and then I got pregnant very shortly after. Not that it prevents pregnancy, of course, but it's all down
I
there.
think,
As
yeah,
I
when
went.
I look back on my experience, I had the procedure and I went through a whole bunch of I think I met my actually I got together with my now current partner, husband of 15
Yeah,
years.
yeah.
And I feel and I had children later in life. So I had my first
Uh-huh.
one when I was 40.
Hmm.
But I feel like they were definitely part of that healing process as well.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's been an eye
yeah.
opener. Okay,
Exactly. Yes.
so you were a musician. You still
Yeah.
are. You never not be a musician, right?
I always say that.
You're
I
always a
always say that.
musician, but you're not
Yes.
like that's not your chosen profession, let's say, at the moment.
Not anymore. Not anymore
Yeah,
at the moment. You're very right. I always say that, right? I always say I used to be a musician, and then I correct myself. Well, I will always be a musician.
yeah.
Actually, these days really is actually something. So all this time, all these years, when since I've left that route, I wanted to find a way to bring it and weave it into what I do today. And really these days is when I'm actually, you can't see it, but down here there's a microphone, and I just like 2 weeks ago I pulled out from my closet after years all the cables and the microphone and the effects and other instruments, and I'm starting to bring it into how I lead meditations and how I create content and stuff. So yeah, it's coming back in
Lovely.
a way.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
Amazing. So when did you start changing your profession? Like how old were you? Like had you already had you just got one child?
Yeah, just
Yeah.
one for me. He's
Yeah.
12 years old.
Oh, cool. So did it all kind of coincide, like parent
No,
mothering?
and the shift.
Yeah.
No, no, no. I so actually when I was pregnant, um, which was in my fairly early 30s, I was still a musician. I was actually recording the demos for my album when I was pregnant. And then I gave birth, and I took a year, to
Mm,
really just a mom. And then when he was 1 year old, I went into the studio and I recorded the album, and then I started performing. So I was I was at the really peak of that path as a musician when I became a mom, and it's continued to evolve and unfold. And then we moved to Germany, um, and I started touring here around Germany and Europe in general, because when you live in Israel, it's kind of isolated from the rest of the
okay.
world. But so that was actually part of the motivation also to move. And my husband is also a musician. And so, no, it took a few more
Okay.
years. But then when I started touring, and I've done that for a while, and I hustled,
Mm,
do that and to get that going, and it was great. But also I started realizing, because the passion to do what I do today, and work with people in the way I do today, helping them bring their desires and their self-expression into to actualize it and to express it and to manifest it. This is a passion that I've always had, and actually the seeds for that, I think, were planted when I was very, very young. It's when I was born. And I can share more about that if you want. And I actually went to study psychology in university. So I became a musician later in life, when I was in
okay.
my 20s, like not like usually, musicians usually start music as kids, and then, it becomes their. So no, I always wanted to do something like what I do today, but then I devoted to music. And so yeah, this kind of other passion started burning stronger and stronger, and that calling got stronger and stronger, louder and louder. And I lost the joy in, not in music for sure, not, but in touring,
Ah,
in going around and taking everything with me, and it was just like I lost the joy in that and in performing. I love writing music very, very much. I love the creative process, and I love recording. I love singing. Um, I love writing, but performing, yeah. And so that was also a very big transition because I was very focused on my musical career, but it became clearer and clearer that I have to slow down and pause and just be still so I can receive the clarity and the guidance to, what I'm actually supposed to do, because the joy was not there.
Mm.
And then I did that. It was in my late 30s actually, that I transitioned, and then I've done all kinds of certifications, and I started working with clients, and the results were incredible. So I said, okay, now I want to do that in a bigger scale. I want to reach more people, and I got into business.
Cool.
Yeah.
Great. So many things popped into my head then. So do you feel I'm I'm curious because a part of the kind of theme of this particular podcast and my life as well, because I'm 50, is that well, people talk about midlife crisis, but I prefer midlife awakening.
Yes.
Sometimes we have a crisis in order to have the awakening,
Right.
but sometimes we don't. Do you feel like there was kind of some kind of pivotal shift? You said it was kind of your late 30s, so you're in
Yeah.
that sort of era of your
You could
life.
say, yeah. Mm-hmm. You
Did
could
you
say
feel
that.
like there was a pivotal shift for you? I feel like I've seen you mention in your socials about experiencing burnout.
Yes. That was already when I was in my business. So I mean, before I go into that story, just for your
Mm,
question, I think the answer is yes. I think it's kind of like what I just shared,
mm,
as well as going into business. So, I was always very much like an action taker and a driven person, going after what I want. And so I took all that into starting the business, right? Exactly from where I just left
yep.
off the story. So, okay, now I'm doing this. I want to do this in a big scale. I want to reach many, many people. Okay, business online? Okay, how do you do that? And I had no idea. So I invested a lot in learning how to start a business and, marketing, sales, all the things, content, social media. And then COVID just started, and I set very big goals for myself. And in the first year in my business, in my coaching business, I worked really, really hard, and I got to those goals that I've set for the first year, 6 figures in the less than 12 months, blah, blah. And then I burned out. And I guess in the context of your question and your podcast, you it probably relates to that, right?
Mm,
Because something's like, okay, this is not how I do things anymore. It doesn't work. I cannot, like, I'm aiming for a certain, expression of myself as a leader, as a teacher, and a certain level of success as well. And I'm still operating on this outdated program of
mm,
working very hard and sacrificing, and you know um, and that has to change. It has to update. And because it wasn't updated and matching where I was going, I was just pulled back to where it was set and had to start from zero. So I basically had to stop my business. The burnout was really bad, and again, I didn't listen to those knocks. So it knocked and knocked and knocked until I had a terrible skin condition. Um, and I just had to stop and release all my team and stop all the marketing. And, I just served the clients that I had until, they kind of graduated as well from the program that I was offering at the time. And I really needed to. And then I started investing a lot in myself again.
mm.
So not so much in learning how to build a business, but actually how to really upgrade myself and reprogram myself. And then I restarted again on a new, yeah, a new level of awareness, a new frequency, a new program.
Cool.
Yeah.
I was going to ask you with that initial business that you had that you burnt out from, were you
Yeah,
teaching the same kind of principles? Like obviously with your upgrade, your the things that you teach are also upgraded, but were
exactly.
you kind of teaching that stuff, the mindset and all of those and manifestation that
Not so much
okay,
manifestation.
okay.
I was definitely, a lot of this was already there. I
Mm.
was helping people with a lot with anxiety and depression, mostly anxiety. Um, and I mean, manifestation is everything, right? We manifest our life and all of our
For good
experiences,
or
but
bad, right?
yeah, exactly. We manifest all the time, but it was more around really just well-being,
Mm,
emotional
okay.
well-being,
Yeah.
as it also translates, of course, into health or, success or relationships, but really, and in that sense, it hasn't changed. Like I always say, well-being is a skill that you can practice and master. This I said from the very beginning, and I really, really believe that. I know it to be true. This is a skill that we can practice and master, and then well-being just translates into whatever well-being
Mean
means
for you.
for you.
Yeah.
So it all starts with health anyway, right?
Mm,
Because if you can have many goals and dreams, but if you're unhealthy, then you only have one. So it's always at that's the main
mm,
foundation, our well-being, and then well-being in all aspects. So yeah, as you said, it's more like as I upgraded, my teachings upgraded,
yeah.
and the processes upgraded. So some definitely remained, and I'm still using many of the tools that I've used in the first year of my and that I've learned in my own journey. Um, but then the processes and the tools keeps upgrading.
Where was I? Okay. So you've done your first year of business, burnt out, and then you took some time. When you were rebuilding your business, you've mentioned that you went and did some, courses and more learning.
Yeah,
Did you then use those practices to help you build the business that you now have?
100%,
Did you go,
absolutely.
well, this is the experiment. Let's see if we can put all of these things into practice and
Absolutely. Yeah, 100%. And I regard my business as my art, so I used to do music, and I used to, write music and lyrics, and then record them and produce them and put them out there in the world and then perform with them. And it's very similar, actually. It's just a slightly different language and exchange. But it's my art. It's the expression of who I am, and I use all of these tools to create my business, my service, and the value that I share, and what I manifest for myself and for the people in my world, my family, my team, my clients, my community. Yeah, absolutely, of course.
cool. Um, I'm really interested to hear about some of the actual things that you do because you you use neuroscience and you've
Mm-hmm.
explored neuroscience in your
Yeah,
practices. And you
yeah,
kind of have drawn on a number of things, I believe, to create a kind of a unique approach as
yeah,
part of your creativity.
yeah.
Um, and are you currently working with Joe Dispenza?
No, currently
No.
not. Currently not. So I basically, at some point, um, there were two kind of interactions with him uh, along those years.
Uh-huh.
One was when I went to my first week-long retreat. He runs
Oh,
week-long
wow.
events. So I went to the first one for me. At the time, that was 2022. And we did this incredible meditation and coherence meditation, actually giving healing to other people that were there in the space with us. And it was the most heart opening, really life-changing experience. And when that was over and I was with my heart cracked open, he then went on stage and talked about this study that he's doing, and how they did coherence healing with children with autism, and also with cerebral palsy. This one kid with cerebral palsy, and he shared how the changes and the effects of the coherence healing on these children. And what I had mentioned here before, that the seeds to this passion were planted in me even when I was born. Here is where we can connect those dots together. I was born to a family with a child with cerebral palsy. So my middle brother had cerebral palsy, and he died when I was 6 years old. And he was actually, later in life, I found out that he was buried on my 6th birthday, on that date. And his life and death and soul play a really, really big part of my journey. And so, when he said that, and I just was a puddle. I felt it struck my core, when he shared that. And it was like, it hit me that I have to be part of this in some way. I have to offer all this talent and drive and energy and, like my go thing to this. Like, I have so much to give. I have to give this to this cause. I have to be part of this. I have to, contribute to bringing these tools and this information and this healing to children with special needs and with cerebral palsy in specific. And I tried to approach him. It's quite difficult to approach Dr. Joe. So I couldn't get to him, but I got an email of the team, blah, blah, blah. I even bought it's known about him that he loves whiskey and red wine. So I bought a good bottle of, I think it was, I don't know, Jack Daniels or something, in the hotel where this was going on. And I heard that he likes receiving gifts. And if you transfer a gift through the team, he will receive it and he will notice it. So I wrote my story on a letter, and I didn't know how to get to him. And of course, I emailed the team after that, and I just got, polite replies because, and then I found out that there is a much smaller event with him once a year in Costa Rica, with only not a handful, but like maybe 100 participants versus hundreds and hundreds of participants in those week-long events. And so I signed up to the waiting list. And even though it was COVID and I live in the other side of the world, and somehow things led to me being there. And then I approached him. And the first thing I said, which is a really good sales tactic, even though I wasn't even aiming for that, was like, do you remember you got a Jack Daniels? Like, I remember that, I kind of like,
that was me.
That was me, but that got his attention, because it was like, oh, I want to thank you, blah, blah, blah. I was like, do you remember the Jack Daniels? So I got his attention, and I told him, I'm here. And this is like, I put all of my intention in that moment, and he got it. He saw it. He could see me, and he connected me with his research team.
Okay.
And which was a really, really big achievement for me. And I've put up a page, and I've reached out. I'm connected to a community of families with cerebral palsy in Israel, because I was for many years with a partner with a son with cerebral palsy. That's another story. And so I've gathered up a group of participants with cerebral palsy, and they were a study group. And so Dr. Joe's team have done a few weeks, like a few months, coherence healing with a study on this group, which was an incredible step forward with my mission with this. But this had to pause because we realized during this experiment that it's really important that the people who participate, or either the parents or, you know, whoever is the connecting, you know, if the children are not really someone in that in that constellation has to be familiar with the work of Dr.
Okay.
Joe and with the meditations. Otherwise, there was not enough
Understanding.
commitment or understanding or consistency. It was really hard to really, you know, make that happen. And so I will circle back to that. And then at another time, I basically applied and was accepted to go through Dr. Joe's training to become a neuroscience solutions consultant, which is basically to be, so I was coached by him with a small group of people to teach his material in a very specific way. So you can't just go out and teach Dr. Joe's material. You can teach a very specific course in a very specific way. He's very adamant as to how people can teach his material and use his name. So I've done that, but I don't actually deliver that course because it's more for organizations and corporations. And actually, I'm very focused on working with individuals. And, you know, I kind of continued and developed my own, you know, kind of processes. And so it's not something that I continued pursuing, but yeah, those were my
experiences. Wow.
Very valuable experiences with him.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Can you talk to us a little bit about heart coherence? I'm sure that some of the listeners will have heard of it, but potentially not. I mean, it's relatively, like I've been to a Joe Dispenza one-day event a couple of years ago and followed him and, you know, read his books and done some of the practices. And, you know, I've heard about heart coherence with Heart Math Foundation, read a couple of books. So, but it's been quite recent. And the intention experiment as well. I think they talk about heart coherence in that book. But it seems quite new.
Yeah, relatively.
Well, I mean, it's been around for a long time, but like
the yogis knew that.
It's getting more attention, more awareness. Like, I'd love to know 3 things. Or maybe two, and possibly a third, but I think you might have already answered the third.
It's okay.
The first one is, like, when you did that big heart coherence meditation with a big group when you're on your week retreat, and you said that you were focusing your attention on some people there for healing. I'd love to know what the outcomes of that were. And if you could explain what heart coherence is, that would be amazing. Yeah. So one way or the other.
Well, the outcome of those healings, I don't remember specifically with the specific people that were there, but I can share in general that, you know, coherence healing it has remarkable results, and we know that, you know, specifically for in Dr. Joe's website and, you know, YouTube, and like if anyone listening is drawn to this specifically, there are incredible stories of all sorts of healings through this, and basically because we know that, and this will lead to your other question as well, we know that everything is first created in the field. So we know that there is an electromagnetic field around our body, and that goes far beyond our body, and basically is part, if you can say that, of a unified field where there is no separation of time and space. So it's all energy, it's all frequencies. And we know that everything in the physical, in the materialistic physical level of reality that we experience with our bodies, is first created in that field. To illustrate that, and you know, and like to give an example of that, or make it a bit more tangible to understand. There is research. There was a research that was done. They took a group of women with a certain type of cancer, and they scanned the electromagnetic field around their bodies. And all of them had the same pattern, the exact same pattern in the electromagnetic field around their body. And then they took another group of women without the cancer, scanned the electromagnetic field around their bodies. Some of them had the same pattern, some of them didn't. And then this experiment or research went over some years. Yeah. So some years after, they've scanned the electromagnetic, they took the group of women without the cancer. And those women that were without cancer at the time, but had the same pattern in the field as the women with the cancer from the other group, those specific women developed the same type of cancer.
Wow.
Which is incredible. It's mind-blowing. So it shows us that the cancer was already there as a pattern, as a blueprint, as an energetic blueprint in the electromagnetic field around their body. It wasn't materialized yet. It hasn't materialized yet in the beginning, in the first stage of this research, until it did. And so whatever is the pattern, the blueprint, the energetic pattern that is present and active in the electromagnetic field is what then is projected into physical reality. Those frequencies are transmuted into physical realities, into an energetic blueprint that is condensed enough for us to perceive with our physical senses and experience physically in our body and so on. And that is true for everything, to our physical body and for our money and for our relationships, everything in the physical world. That's basically how reality is expanding and evolving from energy to matter, from energy to matter. And so in coherence healing, when you, and even more so when a group of people are focused on a specific potentiality, a specific locality in the field, in this case the healing of a certain person, right, and they focus on that with their mind, so with their thought, they give their attention to it, their focused attention to it, and tune into the vibration of the healing. How do you do that? You feel it, right? And I mean, we all the time we hear it, right, that the feeling is the secret, and you need to feel it. But what does that really mean? Our feelings are frequencies, like everything, right? But the way we feel gives us the indication of the vibration or the frequency we are tuned into. Okay. And so that's why when we say emotions are energy in motion, all energy is in motion. Energy is always in motion. It cannot not be in motion. It's inherent nature. But when we feel emotions, we move the energy, or we know to what movement, to what frequency of energy we are tuned into. And so if I'm able to focus on a certain frequency and tune into it vibrationally, meaning feeling the feeling of my intention, so to give it my attention and tune into the intention, then I'm moving energy to that. So this goes for any manifestation, but in the context of healing and coherence healing, if a group of people do that and all focus on a certain potentiality and raise their frequency to match the healing with feelings of love, of gratitude, of these elevated emotions that are basically very high frequencies, then they create a blueprint in the field, in the electromagnetic field of that person that is receiving the healing. And that's basically how it works. And this relates to the heart, basically. And this relates to the heart coherence that you asked about, right? So when we do that, we basically create coherence in the heart and between the heart and the brain. So we focus on a frequency with our brain. I mean, the brain is the physical tool with which we do that. We first do it with our thought, right? But it has an effect in our brain That's the physical instrument with which we do that. And we bring into coherence that frequency with the frequency that we're tuning into with our heart, with our emotions. And this is not done with these organs, but it affects the organs of our body. So the body is already a manifestation of energy. But as such, when we do that with our mind and with our emotion, it affects the body. And these organs in our body, brain and heart, which are also energetic centers, hormonal centers in our body that are very powerful. This creates coherence that if you measure the frequencies, literally measure the electromagnetic field and the neurochemistry in the body, you can see the electromagnetic waves in the brain. And you can literally see through, of course, certain instruments, you can see the field and the coherence that is created, which creates magnetism. So, I mean, we can talk about that. So I'm on a rampage here, but just like the Earth is magnetic, right? We have polars in the Earth. If you look at the electromagnetic field, it's polarized and it's coherent, right? There is coherence there. It's not disordered. There is perfect order in that. So it's the same thing. When you bring coherence to your brain and heart, you polarize the electromagnetic field and you bring coherence, which amplifies your magnetism. So I'll pause here. But I think I answered your questions, though.
Yeah, you did. Thank you. It is amazing. And that's one of the things that I love about Joe Dispenza's work, because, people can go, oh, meditation, manifestation, it's all just woo-woo nonsense, blah, 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 or, part belief. But Joe Dispenza, through his extensive work, has done all of the tests. He's put the, things on people's brains to see the brainwave changes. He's done the blood tests. You can actually, and like when you say that, your thoughts create your reality, when we're in that perpetual cycle of thinking the same things all the time, we release the same hormones, and so we get the same outcome. And so it's
exactly so.
And so it's like the fact that he's proven that time and time again is just like, it's a no-brainer.
Absolutely. And that's why there are so many millions of people really that follow his work and apply it, and so countless of incredible healing stories. And other stories too of transformation. And that's what I always say. I think his greatest gift to the world is this bridge between spirituality and science, in a way that there are others that have done that and that are doing it. Yes, absolutely. And that is the gift that they bring to the world, that they bring this bridge that makes it so tangible and reasonable, right? To understand, because we are so programmed to rely on the physical evidence and the scientific proof. And so it's hard for many, many, many people to open up to spirituality or to these ancient wisdom and tools, really, because it doesn't have that proof and that validity that we need. So it's a great gift that Dr. Joe and his peers in this field are bringing to the world as scientists to fulfill that,
heal more people. Essentially,
exactly. It's incredible.
And the world.
Yeah.
One person at a time.
Yes, exactly.
So let's talk about your work specifically. We've probably got about 10 minutes left, and so I've left this literally to the last bit. But I think we've got a good sense of what you do in terms of your practices. We talked at the beginning about all of that, but how do you draw on those kind of practices from Joe Dispenza and other practices in your specific work? I've been following you on Instagram. I know that you're talking about people, allowing people to manifest their, whatever they want, I guess. And so like, what's your process with the people you work with?
Sure. So thank you for asking, and for following me on Instagram. Yeah, so I really, I mean, you've already said it quite well when you say that, that I bring a lot of different tools and practices from different teachers, great teachers that I've had the honor of working with, and education that I've received, and I bring that together. So there's a lot of Dr. Joe's influence for sure. Also a lot of Bob Proctor, who was my mentor. Regan Helier was my mentor, and others. And it's and of course my own personal journey, and the learnings that I have unlocked, some of which I've shared here today, and it all comes together into a full process and formula that I support people through. I say, I consider us, as human beings, we are spiritual beings, and we have this human instrument, I call it, right? So as humans, we are a spiritual being, or energy, if you're not like, if someone listening like blah 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 spiritual being, you are energy, you are a form of energy. We just discussed that. This is a
It's
scientific
proven.
truth.
Yeah. Yeah.
Exactly, you are a consciousness, it's proven. And you have this instrument. The instrument is not only the body, it's also the mind, right? It's the human instrument through which we create. We are the perpetual creative process is happening to and through us. And when we have an idea of something that we want, or that we would like to create, if we are able to bring that forth. But in order for that to happen, and the reason why so many people are held back in those cycles that, as I have shared, that I was held back in, is because this instrument is operating on a program. It's just a big part of its nature, is that it operates on a program that is very much like a computer program, if you will, or on an autopilot program is even a better analogy, right? So this instrument, like a plane that can take you anywhere around the world, and there is infinite supply of fuel, that's the energy, right? Or spirit, if you like that. And so you can go anywhere, you can set a destination and go there, but there's an autopilot system, and that is set on a certain course from one place to the next, to the destination that's been set. And if you don't update the program this marvelous instrument is operating on, you're not going to get to the new destination. You're not going to be able to bring what you desire into life, and you're going to be held back on this cycle, because that's where the autopilot system is set. And so what I help people do through this process that I have created is to really master the instrument. As I said before, it's a skill that you can practice and master. And so it's really about mastering the instrument and the skill of using this instrument to create what you want. And a big part of that is how to go into the operating system and update and upgrade the program to match the new destination, and embody that version of yourself that is living in that destination, right? There's a quote that I love quoting from the book As a Man Thinketh by James Allen. It's a very old book. It's a classic from 1903. And it ends with the words, "The sunny shore of your ideal awaits your coming. Keep your hand firmly upon the helm of thought. At the bark of your soul reclines the commanding master. She does but sleep. Wake her." Of course, it was written, "He does but sleep, wake him," because at the time it was all men. But I read it, and I read it for me. So cool. I love this, and I have it on my wall. It's all about that. It's about awakening the commanding master and mastering this ship, this instrument, and the sunny shore awaits our coming. It's just that we are asleep and we don't master this instrument. So it is tossed and turned on the waves and winds of circumstances, conditions, other people. And when we awaken that master and we master the instrument or the vehicle, we can go to the sunny shore of our ideal, and then choose another one and continue our journey. And so that's what I do. I help people through different processes and tools that combine a lot of the things that we touched on today, and others. Yeah.
Cool.
That's my passion. That's my mission.
Amazing.
One person at a time, exactly as you
Yeah,
said.
one person at a time. Um,
Yeah.
you mentioned I've read in when I was writing my notes, the modern day woman is who you help. Now, I would love to just hear your thoughts on that. Like, who is that modern day woman? Because for me, I work in health and fitness, and the modern day woman that I come across most of all is the one that's busy, tired, hustling, not got enough time for themselves,
Yeah.
pleasing all of the other people and not really
Right.
taking care of themselves. I don't want to say targeting is not the right word. Do you work with specific people within that women within that category? Are they like, are they go-getters like you, or are they women that just need to be pulled out of a hole? Like, what's going on, and who is that modern day woman that you work with?
Yeah, well, it is a wide range, I have to say. I love working with everyone, not only women, by the way. I love
Okay.
working with men too.
Yeah.
It's true that mostly it's women that come to, to my world and to my programs, but we do have a couple of men, a few men, and also on my team, and I love working with men as well. But yeah, it's mostly women, and yes, I would say most of them are in the kind of
Go-getters?
the go-getters, the tireds, the
Okay. Yeah.
hustlers. Most of them are women in their mm, around our age, right? So I'm in
Yeah.
my mid 40s, you're 50, you said. So around this age, 45, 50. Some are older, some are younger for sure. Um, I love when young women come and join my programs because wow, I mean, if I had this information when I was 20 and 30, oh my God. So yeah, but most of them are moms,
Mm.
busy, kids are
Yeah.
also already, teenagers or older. They've been at it for a long time as moms, giving, 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 and having a very big dream, or even just a knowing that they're meant for more, and they're ready to do it. They're ready
Great.
to just go for it and to go for themselves more than anything else.
Amazing.
uh, yeah.
Cool.
Yes.
We've got a free training, I believe, that we're
Yes.
going to share with the listeners. We've got
Right.
you in our guest directory on the website, so that free training is going to be included in your
Yes.
on your profile page. Um,
Yes, I love this training. We actually just updated it
okay,
to newer, a newer version of it with more updated. I do a lot of work myself, and I always have mentors, and I always go through. So we just updated the training
cool.
to new videos, and it's really good. I love it. I really
Great.
recommend it. Yeah.
Thank you so much. That's a really great opportunity. Like, obviously, having this conversation with you and finding out more about you is a really great way for people to find out whether you're the right fit. But having that training, they'll be able to check that out. And if
Oh
they
yeah,
have
and there's
big
a lot of
dreams and they want to break free from the cycles of the
absolutely.
monotony, then
Absolutely. And there's a lot of other free things. I mean, there are free
yeah,
meditations.
wow,
So if anybody listening, you're welcome to find me on Instagram. Probably the links will be in the notes for the
yeah,
of the episode. And you can send me a message, and I'm very happy to offer other resources as well, and just some
fantastic,
direction. Yeah,
brilliant.
absolutely.
Thank you so much for joining us. It's been a great
Thank you so much,
conversation, and
Nadine.
yeah,
Absolutely. I
yeah, I really
absolutely love being
appreciate your
here.
time.
Likewise. Thank you so much.
Thank you.